Do 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 do. Eventually, this will show up, right? Woo! She's fine. She said she doesn't want to watch. All right. Battle for Wondla, Chapter 11. I'm going to start reading now, Freya, because I took all this time and got ready and told you guys to follow storytime rules. You guys can watch it again afterwards. It uploads automatically. It's crazy. Chapter 11, Pantomime. The hover sloop exited the forest without incident. Ava reported that the Dorsian had moved north and was no longer in the vicinity. The following morning, the group crossed a short distance of the flats and made their way through the scrubby foothills of the Bleak Mountains. There are paths here, Haley said. He pointed to a pattern of flat stones snaking across the landscape. These were probably paved roads at one time, Ava explained. They were sitting next to Caruncle on the driver's seat. Yes, said Caruncle. We are coming upon ruins from your people. I've explored them on prior excursions, which is how I discovered the path across through the mountains. I had no idea the ruins stretched across both sides of the mountains, said Ava. Oh, yes. Down here, these overgrown ruins run in all directions for quite a distance. Also, do you see how lush green the land is? Ava nodded. That's because we are on the windward side of these mountains. The air is heavy with water, as it blows south from Lake Concourse. But it's like a desert on the other side, said Ava. Because the water gets trapped here on this side. It is too heavy to blow over those peaks. Caruncle pointed toward the jagged mountains looming closer. And you know a way through there? Haley asked. The only way, yes. One of these past paths will take us. Only I, Caruncle, am the one who knows where it is. You will see when we cross these mountains. We will come to the ancient desert ruins, and we shall locate Zin. I will lead us straight through the night so that we arrive by sunrise tomorrow. Caruncle's team trotted down the ancient highway. Tufts of lush grass and weeds broke up the sun-bleached pavement. Hunks of rock and boulders were thrown on either side of the road. As they passed close by, Ava realized the rocks were actually bricks in the remains of walls. Where a building once stood, now there was only a fractured foundation, a large ghostly footprint of a world that was no more. On the peak of a low-lying mountain, Ava saw a giant statue amidst the ruins. Though the morning sun was bright behind it, the statue's elongated silhouette brought to mind the pillar guards from the Royal Museum of Solace. Ava masked the sun's glare with her hand to get a better view, but the statue had disappeared. She searched for a nearby turnfin to ask for an explanation, but none of the birds were present. She considered asking Haley, but decided he would just tease her about seeing things that weren't really there. Once we get to the cover of those overgrown ruins up ahead, we should stop rest, and let Blix and Bax eat before we set off through the mountains, said Caruncle. He snapped the reins, and the runners loped ahead. Are there any dangers here? Ava stood in a crumbling courtyard of stone. Towering above her, the remnants of once majestic edifices revealed the scars that time had etched upon their surface. The thick roots snaked through these remains, like veins running through the entire overgrown city. In her drab poncho, Ava would have disappeared among the lichen-covered rubble if it weren't for her snow-white hair. I have seen nothing beyond the usual. Caruncle filled a woven feed bag with grain. The munt-runner's hides quivered as they watched him with dilated eyes. He laid the feed bag on the ground in front of his team, and the munt-runners bent low to peck at the food with their short, blunt beaks. "But don't go climbing on anything," Caruncle said. "None of these statues are stable." "You can say that again." Haley gazed up at a fractured leaf set above a large, gaping doorway. He walked through the stone doorway and into the overgrown ruins beyond. "Wow, look at this place," his voice echoed. "Don't go too far. We'll leave shortly." Caruncle found his pipe and his bag of spices. "However, if you discover something interesting, come get me." Ava followed a particularly large mass of roots that crept down from the roof of a deteriorating building. The roots grew out from a squat tree. Hanging from a twisted trunk was tangled vines covered in jade-green leaves. "Caruncle, what is this?" "Ah, mimic ivy," Caruncle answered from his sloop. "Feel, touch it." Ava looked back at him, suspicious. "Don't worry, it will not harm you." Caruncle wore a toothy grin. Ava placed her fingertips on the thick serpentine roots of the ivy. Immediately the leafy vines rustled and moved. They came together in such a way as to form a shape, the animated shape of a large Dorsian. Unsure of what she was witnessing, Ava backed up. The ivy-formed Dorsian rushed at Ava. She cried out and stumbled backward over fallen debris. "What's wrong?" Haley poked his head out from a stone doorway. Caruncle bellowed with laughter. "It is nothing to worry about." He waddled over and helped Ava up to her feet. "You've never seen mimic ivy before?" The ivy-formed Dorsian blocked Ava from the trunk of the plant. She focused her mind on its thick, sinuous trunk. "I see you. Go away," the ivy said. "Look, see here." Caruncle pointed at tiny blackberries growing from the ends of the ivy's shoots. "Those are its eyes. It sees an animal, something that would eat its leaves, and then it creates a shape, a silhouette, to fight it off." Caruncle cackled and slapped Ava on the back. "And it scare-frightened you good, Ava 9. Why a Dorsian?" Ava went to touch the leaves of the ivy. The ivy-formed Dorsian backed up just beyond reach. "Does it know what I fear?" "No, it just picks an animal larger than you." Caruncle lit his pipe. "Probably something that it has seen before." Ava pointed to the Dorsian shape and whispered to the mimic ivy, "You've seen this form before." "Yes." "Recently?" "No, many suns ago." "Have you seen my shape before?" She walked under the fragment of stone archway covered in the tangle of roots. "No." The ivy's vines twined to create the silhouette of Ava. As she walked, it mirrored her every move. Ava skipped. The ivy Ava skipped. Ava stopped, but the ivy Ava continued down a corridor. Ava now followed the ivy. She exited and found herself in a wide expanse of the ruins. "Do not go too far," said Caruncle. "We must leave soon." "I'm not the sort who would eat your beautiful leaves, so maybe you can show me what the others you have seen," Ava asked the plant. "Others, yes." The ivy began to take on a new shape. It reminded Ava of the holograms she'd seen of topiaries used to decorate the fanciful gardens of the past. She watched an ivory-formed munt-runner gallop over the rubble. Ava gave chase, traveling farther and farther into the labyrinth. The munt-runner's shape led Ava to a large facade of an ornate cathedral, now overtaken by the choking, twining roots of the mimic ivy. Here the ivy took the form of a giant water bear, like Otto, and bound up and over the front of the cathedral. "Ava, where are you?" Haley called from somewhere. "More." Ava ignored Haley. "Show me more." She ran through the doorway into the roofless cathedral. Inside, Ava stopped abruptly. The ivy had now taken on an all too familiar shape. Zin. "Ava!" Caruncle's voice rang out through the ruins. "I can hear you. Tell me, Caruncle, where you are." "This one," Ava said to the ivy. "Where did it go?" The ivy mimicked Zin's arm movements as it pointed to the other end of the cathedral, opposite the direction Ava had come. There she spied a small opening through the collapsed doorway. Ava paused and looked back toward the direction of Caruncle and Haley. "They can wait. I've got to find him. Let's go." The ivy form Zin zoomed down the length of the enormous cathedral and out beyond. Ava dashed after it. She wriggled through the collapsed opening, leaving Caruncle and Haley far behind. "I found Zin at last. I knew he'd be in the ruins." She followed the ivy down abandoned alleys and across the cracked stones of a square, and arrived at the entrance of a disintegrating domed amphitheater. Ava stepped into the shadowy entrance and came out into the open air space. Inside the circular amphitheater, the ivy form Zin flew up to join with another ivy shape, a shape Ava had seen before, the statue. Standing among the empty rows that had once held seats, an ivy-formed giant loomed above Ava. 3 columnar legs tapered up to a T-shaped head, while long, flattened arms hung down on either side of its towering body. "A pillar guard?" Ava asked the mimic ivy. The vines of the ivy dispersed and returned to their natural shape, revealing an actual pillar guard that had been shrouded underneath the foliage. Its 3 eyes lit up and emitted a long, loud blat. Ava scurried away from the giant. A long arm ending in a collection of serrated claws extended at lightning speed. The claws sank deep into the earth just in front of Ava, blocking her escape. The pillar guard sounded off again, and Ava turned to face it. The guard yanked its claws from the ground, removing clods of turf with it, and retracted its segmented arm. When Ava tried to leave again, the pillar guard blocked her path. Somewhere far in the ruins, Ava could hear Haley and Caruncle calling for her. She dashed off in one direction, but quickly changed courses in hopes of tricking the guard, but again she was cut off from escape. "Let me pass," Ava cried. The guard let out another loud blat, followed by several short trills. "I don't understand you," Ava said, catching her breath. She gazed up. "Can whoever's making that noise please stop? Because you're supposed to be following story time rules." The guard watched her with all 3 glowing eyes. "Are you trying to tell me something?" Her question was answered by a quick series of staccato notes. "Ugh, I don't know what you're saying." Ava searched the ground for a stick to draw in the dirt with, but none could be found. Still hunting, she walked toward the roots of ivy. She glanced up to see the ivy form of Zin flying around the amphitheater. She pointed to the ivy. "Is it Zin? Is he nearby?" The pillar guard looked at the ivy and blurted out a melody of brassy sound. It laid its hand flat on the ground at Ava's feet. Its talons were as big as her body. In an instant the guard retracted its claws. "You know where Zin is, don't you?" Ava asked. Once more it replied in musical tones. "Can you take me?" More music. "Let me get my friends. You can lead us." Ava pointed back from where she'd come. "Haley, I'm over here," she shouted. Another loud blat echoed from the ancient walls. The pillar guard turned and took 3 steps away from Ava. "Wait!" She ran to catch up with the guard, waving her arms wildly to stop it. "Don't go!" The guard made no more noise and lowered its hand to the ground once more. "I guess it's just you and me then, huh?" Ava took a deep breath and climbed up the pillar guard's segmented arm. The guard lifted Ava to its shoulder, where she stood and found a handhold in the ridges of its neck. The giant turned and bounded away from the ruins toward the mountains. Right. Here's a look at Chapter 12's picture. Dun dun dun.